Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jimmy Fallon Show podcast, presented to you, like always, by our presenting sponsor, Mackhard Anderson and Associates, PLLC. I will tell you all about their law services and what they can do for you in a pinch later on in the show. But first, how the hell are you doing? How are you doing? It's been a while, huh? It's been a minute, huh? It's been about 10 days since our last podcast. Man's been busy, or since a normal podcast. It's been about 5 days since a podcast, but since one of these, it's been about 10 days. And man's been busy. I had a wedding to go to, out of town. Had a wedding to go to. A really good friend of mine was getting hitched, and I had to be there. And it was the first time I had done anything, really, since the quarantine. And anything of this, anything of the normalcy, something that you would do before all this happened. And, the wedding festivities, the reception, stuff like that. I'm not going to lie, it felt good. It felt really good. It felt really, really, I don't know, it kind of put things into, I don't want to say put things into perspective. That might be a little bit dramatic, but it was a reminder of, I guess, life. It's easy to get wrapped up nowadays, especially when you're home or if you're, quarantined up or whatever you're doing. But it's really easy to get wrapped up in what's happening right now, right? Like everything you hear is the election, or you hear about, whatever it may be, riots in the streets, California burning, the Orwellian nightmare, all of that, and it's easy to forget. We're all still living, and I mean I forget about that sometimes. Sometimes I have to detach. And if all you're doing is living in some weird bubble of YouTube comments and Instagram and Twitter and news and elections and you're living in that world, and then simultaneously you're working remote, and your gym is your living room, and you're not doing anything. I'm not saying that we've talked about obviously the pandemic a lot. And I'm not saying that it's time to go crazy. It's not time to do body shots. You know what I mean? But I will say it was nice, and there were precautions. It wasn't like, this wasn't a wedding in Panama City. This wasn't spring break 2006. But there were precautions, but it was nice to do some things that I would call normal. I mean, it's funny because Mardi Gras was right before the quarantine, and since then I haven't really drank. I've drank Trulies. We all know during the summer, man's ain't afraid to go next to the pool and drink some lemonade Truly Bad Boys. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous to go for the reception, because I was nervous about how the hell is my body gonna handle some makers and soda or something. And when I got up to the bar, the bartender said, "Sir, what do you want?" I kind of hesitated. I had like PTSD, of the old days of just reaching out and saying, "I'll take a makers and soda," boom, and then when that first one hit my lips, man, it just brought me back. Felt good. But hey, it all went well. It's a good. And the moral of the story here is that even though it's hard right now, take a moment, take a breath, and remember that although it seems like the world has stopped, although it seems like society has stopped, and everything that normal was not, it is important to remember that you are still living. Start doing things that make you feel like you're living. I say this all the time. I talked about this a couple podcasts ago, where do whatever you got to do. You got to go take a walk. Go take a walk. You got to start reading. Do some yoga. Do some whatever you got to do to live. I know besides the wedding, I've been recently, I live where there's beaches, and I've been recently trying to throw in some beach walks, just even in the morning or whatever, just kind of just strolling down a mile or two, maybe even sit on the beach, whatever. Today, matter of fact, I went out on the beach, read for a little bit, and just tried to relax, just tried to detach and just tried to take a breath and remember that we are still out here, But man, I tell you what, you forget real quick. The wedding, we after a few makers, we got on the dance floor, and they played poured some sugar on me, and that's like my kryptonite. When I hear, there's a couple songs that when I hear, it's time to go. You know, it's time to remove all boundaries. Pour Some Sugar on Me is certainly one. Pony is another one. Pony that's less family friendly. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those ones where it better be a dark venue. The lights better be off, and because my dignity will be left there. But Pour Some Sugar on Me, we got involved. You know, this was after a few drinks on the dance floor. I kind of turned into like in my mind, I'm kind of like Chris Brown. But if Chris Brown had like a much more improved temperament, but much worse dance skills. And now that I say that, that's not really much of Chris Brown at all, is it? So I might have to redo my metaphor there. But what else have I been doing in these few days since y'all have heard me try and walk you through this crazy time that we're living? I got pulled over. I was in a situation with the police. I was in a little kerfuffle, if you will. I for some reason I don't like to pay my I don't like to renew my tag. I like to let my tag go expired, and I like to make them come find me. You know what I mean? Make them come get me. I'm not paying it if they don't come get me. I feel like it's like a cat and mouse game where if they don't come get me, if they don't find me, if I never get pulled over for the tag, I'll just never pay it. And then if I do get pulled over, I'll go pay it. You know, so it's been expired for about, I don't know, 6 months or so, 7 months or so. And, you know, this is kind of like, I blame this on Travis Scott. You know, I listen to Sicko Mode too many times, and I say, you know, I listen to a little too much Sicko Mode, a little too much Tupac. Next thing you know, I'm on the lam. Next thing you know, I'm driving around not paying tags. You know, this is the whitest version of being a badass of all time. This is bad boy life. This is bad boy life if you drive a Honda Accord. If you drive a Honda Accord, this is all it is. You know what I mean? I'm not riding in an Impala, you know, a baby blue Impala. I'm riding in a white Honda Accord. So I can only do my level of like renegade cowboy lifestyle. It only goes so high. And this is one of them. So I got pulled over, and whenever the cops pulled me over, it was almost like I wanted to tell them, like, hey man, you got me. You got me. You're the one. Out of all these cops out here, you were the one. You were the one that got me. I'll make sure to go pay that $150, sir, for sure. But it's also spooky season, ladies and gentlemen. 5 days away from Halloween. I'm not much of a Halloween guy, not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to you. You know I'm more of a Christmas guy. Mans likes Christmas music. I like, the trees, the presents, everything Christmas related, the songs. I like to, I started listening to the songs pretty early on. I try and give myself until Thanksgiving, but man, that week of Thanksgiving, I'm not gonna lie to you, it gets a little testy. But I love Christmas. Halloween, it's like a C tier, B tier holiday for me. But I think it's because when I was growing up, I grew up in not a great neighborhood, pretty bad neighborhood, and we didn't have trick or treating. And not one. I lived in that neighborhood for 15 years, and we did not have a single trick or treater in 15 years. We never trick or treated in that neighborhood, so it was never something I was excited to do. I'm also like, I could never have been a Girl Scout. First, because I didn't meet the requirements, the first requirement, but also because I could never peddle for cookies. I could never ask people if they wanted to buy cookies, and that's how trick or treating was with me. I felt weird about knocking on someone's door and begging for a Milky Way. It just seemed weird to me. Banging on someone's door, interrupting their night. I don't know what they're doing. They may be eating dinner. They may be having a conversation, and I'm out here hustling for a Twix. I'm out here interrupting their night, trying to get a candy apple. So I was always. Some kids just love it. Some kids don't think anything of it. They run in, they kick the door down. They do all that for a bite-sized Snickers. But I hated that. I hate interrupting or imposing or whatever on someone else. I'd be the worst homeless person on the planet because I don't think I could ever ask for money. I would hate to, even though I was starving and living under a bridge, I would hate to interrupt someone's day to ask for 70 cents and change. So Halloween, trick-or-treating, I would rather have just went and bought a couple bars of candy, a couple Almond Joys, and went back home and done that. I try and I almost feel like it's like a first date whenever I knock on the door for a trick-or-treating. Is I'll knock on the door, hey, how are you? How was your day? What do you do for a living? Oh, okay, that's nice. Are you from here? You know, and they're just trying to hand me a Twizzlers, but I'm trying to get to know them. I'm trying to feel like it's a give and take situation. I'm trying to feel like, you know, I'm offering them a little bit in return for their Twizzlers. And that's not a euphemism either. This is a family value show, so I'm not using Twizzler as a euphemism there. And I can see now how this is going down a dark road. So we're gonna end that. But I wouldn't say that I love scary movies, but I think I've seen every scary movie. You know, like it's one of those deals where I certainly get scared, and it's almost like I was going to say it's almost like crack, where you do it, it's fun, and then you feel like shit. But I've never done crack, so I have no idea why that was my first metaphor. Was, oh yeah, man, it's kind of like crack. It's not like crack. Well, it might be, but I don't know. I have no idea. But I love scary movies. I get super scared. And I guess it's kind of like a roller coaster. Like the roller coasters, that's much better, right? It's much better to do a metaphor with roller coasters than with crack cocaine. So sorry it took me a beat to get there. But I'm rusty. It's 10 days since the podcast. What do you want me to say? But it's kind of like a roller coaster where if you aren't scared on the roller coaster, is the roller coaster even fun? You know, like you want to scream, right? You go on the roller coaster because you want to flirt with death. You want to feel some mortality, and I guess I guess in the grand scheme of things, that is kind of like crack. But you know, when I think about the scariest movies that I've ever seen, first of all, when I was a child, when I was a wee lad, the two movies that really, really, really messed me up were Child's Play with Chucky and Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger. And very different bad guys. Very different bad guys. One is I think Freddy Krueger's like a former child, like a former pedophile or something. He's got some claws for hands. He lives in your nightmares. And the other one is a Cabbage Patch doll. So very different villains, admittedly. Now I think I grew up with a little sister, and that's why I think I was never scared of like The Ring or stuff like that with like little kids or whatever, because it was just another day. You know, if a little kid just rolled up in the house, you know, that's just another person to play N64 with. So I was never scared of that. I was never scared of like Michael Myers or Jason or anybody like that, like a machete or a knife wielding madman. You know, but Freddy Krueger, for some reason, just the idea of him being in my house, or not my house, in my dreams, the idea of like I'm going to sleep. You know, I'm in my Power Rangers onesie. I'm about to call it a night, and I'm thinking, well, Freddy's waiting there. You know, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do in the dream world. You know what I mean? I'm in tidy white. I don't have my contacts in. I got my glasses on. I'm ill prepared in the dream world to handle Freddy Krueger. He's waiting on me. He's got claws. I got nothing. I'm wearing like an extra large Power Ranger shirt and tidy whities, and I'm 9 years old. You know, like that. That's not where you want to be. And so Freddy Krueger always messed me up. I have no clue why Chucky was so bad. I don't know if it's like I really don't know, because like we didn't even have dolls in the household. So, you know, we had Beanie Babies, but like my sister had Beanie Babies, and I had like wrestling action y'all know what I was playing with when I was a little kid. You know, dumbbells, you know, creatine, stuff like that. That's what I was doing. But we didn't have dolls, so it wasn't even like I saw the dolls and was creeped out by the dolls because of Chucky. I don't know why. It was just one of those things that like hit me on a different level, where Chucky just scared the shit out of me. But again, it's never good when you're scared. Like if I would have came face to face with Chucky, it would have been much better than coming face to face with Freddy Krueger. Because even at 9 or 10 years old, I still had like 2 feet and probably 60 pounds on Chucky. You know, I mean, he's a doll, so there's only so much he could do. But yeah, Chucky messed me up pretty good. As I got older, the movies that really scared me were the Amityville Horror with Ryan Reynolds. Still super scary. Like still, if you watch that, very scary. Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was fun because it was super fun in the theater, because you're screaming, the jump scares are out of control, the whole movie theater's freaking out. But when I got home, it really wasn't that bad, you know. So it was more of in the moment. It was fun. The Strangers was absolutely terrifying. I actually went with a friend of mine and me. Well, a bunch of us went, but One of my friends was so scared during the Strangers movie, he had to remove himself from the theater because he thought he was going to throw up. He thought he was going to get sick right there in front of God and everybody in his Snowcaps box. So he had to go to the lobby. But those were good. Saw, when Saw first came out, I was probably ninth grade, somewhere in there, and something like that, 8th, 9th grade. And those movies are amazing. The first 3 Saws, really good. Then it got a little crazy. Kind of like Jaws. Jaws, first couple of Jaws is really good, but then you start wondering, how many times can I blow up a shark? Same thing with Saw. It's like, man, at some point you wonder, when you watch 4 of those movies, you really got to ask yourself a question of well, I'm not even watching for the movie anymore. I'm just watching how many different traps they can lay for these people. So, and there were so many traps that were, some of the Saw games were way easier than other of the Saw games. So one of the Saw games, all this person had to do was crawl through some barbed wire. And then another one, the person was had a bear trap on their face. They were handicapped. Not handicapped, handcuffed. And they, I think, were drugged. And they had chains around their legs, and they had to find a key. They had to saw the key out of a dead carcass, use the key on the bear trap all within 3 minutes. Damn. The first, I could probably crawl through the barbed wire. I could probably do that. But I don't know if I could do surgery on this dead guy, get the key out while I'm handcuffed, use the key to unlock my leg shackles, and then take the bear trap off of my face all within 3 minutes. A little unfair. There's kind of The Price is Right. Some of the games are way easier than the others. But since it is spooky season, long road to this, I was in the mood, man. I was in the mood to watch something spooky. Something a little spooky. And, right now the scariest thing you can probably watch is the news. But I decided to watch something a little more Halloween. I didn't want to watch, I didn't want to put on Scream. I didn't want to put on something like that. So I watched Stranger Things. And I'm the world's worst about finishing shows. I've been, quote unquote, catching up or finishing Shameless for probably 2 years now. And I don't know why. If I don't do it in a binge session, if I don't do it in a really quick session, then I'm not going to do it. Because what happens is, just like what happened with Stranger Things, I loved the first season. Watched the first season when it came out. So I was up to date on the first season. Then I watched 3 episodes of the second season when it came out, and then I quit. Well, when I go back to watch it, I never just pick up on the 4th episode. I like to start at a clean slate. So I'll start at the beginning of season 2. Well, then I'll watch 3 or 4 episodes and I'll stop. And then it repeats the cycle to where I'm really just watching the first 3 or 4 episodes 50,000 times. And instead of just being a 9-episode season, for me it turns into a 35-part season. So that's what happens with me with every show. Just like Shameless. I have not seen an episode of Shameless in probably, we'll call it a year and a half. So if I ever go back and say, I want to watch Shameless, what I'll have to do is I'll have to go back and re-watch the beginning of season 5. So that's how it plays out. But I watched the entirety of season 2 of Stranger Things. Really enjoyed it. Very fun. I'll probably watch the 3rd, I would guess, this week. So I'll probably have the 3rd done. So I'll be fully caught up on Stranger Things by Halloween, I would guess. But man, I'll tell you this. I won't give any spoilers away. But Hopper, the policeman, he is in the Hall of Fame of actors who can smoke cigarettes. I think this is such a great... There's 2 things that I think are really underrated with an actor. The first is, I guess actresses can do this as well, but I relate to the actors because, I'm a guy, so they're, I can put myself in their roles much easier than a lady. But I think it's really underrated on how well an actor can smoke or how well an actor can drink. 2 examples. First examples of smoking, Joaquin Phoenix is a great smoker. Joaquin Phoenix, every time he's smoking, he always is only smoking the very, very last butt of the cigarette. It's a very small little nub, and he's smoking it if he does not smoke that last little bit, he will die. It's hard to explain, but he is not smoking it for pleasure. He's smoking it because that's what he's got to do, because he's this close to losing his fucking mind, right? He's this close to snapping. If he does not get that last little bit of nicotine, he's going to go postal on everybody. And Hopper in Stranger Things is a Hall of Fame smoker. I don't smoke, I don't want the smoke. I told Pop, keep the smoke. But I mean, everyone's smoked a few times. You're sitting at a blackjack table. You've had a few vodka sodas. So, anyways, we don't have to get into it. We don't have to get into it. But I'm not a smoker. Don't like smoke. Not interested. But when I was watching Stranger Things, man, I was just downright surly. I was downright just needing a cigarette, and it was all because of Hopper. And the drinking one, I'll tell you, a good drinker is Don Draper in Mad Men. When I watched Mad Men, all I wanted to do when I was watching Mad Men was just make a whiskey drink, like Don Draper. He'd come home, shirt and tie, take his tie off, all pissed off, make a drink. At the time, I wasn't even working at a place where I needed to wear a shirt and tie, but I'd come home, put on a shirt and tie just to take the shirt and tie off in a disgusted manner, just to then make a whiskey drink, take a big gulp of it, kind of take a long inhale, kind of like a really angry inhale, take a sip of the drink, slam it down, and then slam the door in my room, and then it was all for naught. But that's what. So I think if you haven't watched Stranger Things, watch Stranger Things and notice how good Hopper is at smoking. Fantastic smoker. He could be the new Joe Camel. Really, he could. If Joe Camel retires, I'm not sure if Joe Camel's still a thing. Hopper could slide right in. So, but that's what's been going on in my world, ladies and gentlemen. Halloween, obviously, this week. It's kind of interested. I'm interested to see what Halloween is like with this whole pandemic and in this situation, because there's nothing that's less rules and regulations. There's nothing that's less social distancing. There's nothing that's less safe than going door to door and collecting candy from strangers. And I've always thought it was funny too with Halloween is how they tell kids, like, be careful for unmarked candy, be careful for whatever. Because I'm always wondering, like, who the hell are these guys? Who are these adults who are spending their Halloween nights just drugging kids? I think that's one of those things where it sounds like it could be dangerous, but really is not that dangerous. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not that big of a deal. It's kind of like, so I have this like phobia or whatever, where if I don't have my drink, like if I'm holding my drink at a bar or something, back whenever this was a thing, if I'm holding my drink and I haven't seen my drink or taken a sip out of my drink for a while, and I'm moving around, whatever, for some reason I always think, like, man, did someone drug my drink? And then common sense should tell me, James, who the hell would want to drug your drink? Why would someone just drug your drink? Who is here spying on you with a handful of drugs, who's saying, I'm going to drug this dude's drink? The second this cat right here turns around, I'm about to spike the shit out of his vodka soda. And I think that's the same thing with the Halloween thing. It's like, could you imagine the lunatic who got set up on Halloween, got all of his candy, took his drugs, made sure the drugs looked like candy, then bagged them up, put them in nice little cute bags, like with Ghost on them or something, and then sat in front of his house waiting for trick-or-treaters to gleefully give them acid, then never see them again. Like, that just seems a little crazy to me. That just seems a little nuts. So what I'm saying is, if you're going trick-or-treating, do it with reckless abandon. Accept candy from literally anyone. Ladies and gentlemen, the show, my God, it is presented to you by Mackhard Anderson and Associates, PLLC. Look, right now is an interesting time, right? It's hard. It's tough. A lot of people are out of work. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are getting their ass kicked by life. Now let's pretend something happens to you. Car wreck, 18-wheeler collision, bad faith insurance claims, fire loss, termite damages. You're in a bad situation. Now you're in a worse situation. You get T-boned by some 18-wheeler driver who's had 5 or 6 black cherry Trulies driving across the country. He's drunk as hell, and he just T-boned you. Boom. Next thing you know, you're crawling down the shoulder of the highway. Your legs don't work anymore. You get to a phone. Who the hell are you going to call? You aren't going to call the billboard lawyers. I'm telling you that right now, because all they want to do is take your money. They just want to take your money. You got to call 601-450-1715 or go to mackhardlaw.com. If you are on the side of the road in this metaphorical situation, I would certainly call. I wouldn't go on a website while you're laying in the shoulder of an interstate or a highway after getting T-boned. So call them. These guys, look, they care about you. They care about you. Your case is important to you. I know these people. They've been a trusted sponsor, a trusted presenting sponsor of the show. I get asked all the time. There's 2 kind of comments I get on my show. The first kind of comments are mostly people telling me to go kill myself or that they hope I die. And then you have the people who ask me about the good folk at Mackhard, Anderson and Associates, PLLC. I can vouch for them. They will care about you. They will take care of you. You are not just a number to them. You are not a one call, that's all. You are not a one click, that's it. You are not 15 minutes or less to them. I've said it before. The only time you should be doing anything that's 15 minutes or less is ordering a pizza. And sometimes that takes a lot longer if you get one of those 3 toppings bad boys. So call them, 601-450-1715, mackhardlaw.com, MCHARDLAW.com. Again, car wrecks, 18-wheeler collisions, wrongful death, bad faith insurance claims, fire loss, termite damage, offshore injuries, onshore injuries as well probably, employment discriminations, and contract business disputes. Do not do it on your own. Have these guys in your corner, a trusted sponsor of the program. God, does anybody do an ad read like me? I'm feeling good today, ladies and gentlemen. I feel good sitting up here in front of the mic. I'm feeling damn good. Maybe that's the beach walks, man. Maybe it's the beach walks. Maybe it's sitting there, you know, just kind of breathing in that salt air. I recently read a book about humans and their kind of connection to the water and why people enjoy being on the water. And it is more of like a biological thing than just because water's pretty or whatever. So, but man, I'm feeling good. Man, I might just be rejuvenated. I might still have a little bit of adrenaline just from the wedding and just from all that stuff and to pour some sugar on me and all that. I mean, I'll tell you this right now. I was putting those tux pants through hell because I was getting low. All right. And those tux pants, when I get a tux fitting, I tell them to paint it on. I tell them to make it tight. All right. And when you tell your fitter to make it tight, paint that thing on, that's not conducive to getting low. All right. So it is what it is. But man, feeling great today. And thank you. I've had a bunch of people reach out and say, man, when's the next pod? I need it. I need the next pod. I have to have it. Please. There's nothing else. There's nothing else out here. It's just Ben Shapiro. The only thing else is Ben Shapiro screaming at people. Please release a podcast. I can't listen to Joe Rogan anymore. I can't listen to Joe Rogan talk about elk anymore. I need something else. So here I am, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, last month on YouTube, 30,000 views. Ooh, baby. 30,000 views across the month of, or in the last 30 days. I think it's something like 2,000 hours watched or something. It might even be more. I'll have to go back and look at that. So we have been popping off, and it's all because of the support of you. It's the support of the listener. It ain't me. I tell you that much. It ain't me. All right. So I owe it all to each and every one of you. So thank you very much for listening to these programs. And again, you can find the video version if for some reason you wanted to watch this pretty face. If you wanted to watch me do the podcast video style, YouTube is the way to go. Audio, if that's your preferred method, again, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, every single place podcasts are sold, RedTube, all the places. We have a couple more stories here. We started off slow. We started off getting to know each other. We started off kind of fun, kind of goofy, kind of spooky. A little bit of spooky, a little bit of goofy, a little bit of fun, a little bit of Maker's Mark, a little bit of beach talk. Makes the world go round. But now let's get into a few topics that I wanted to talk about. I do read the YouTube comments a lot of the times, and we do get a lot. So I don't read them all. I try and read and respond to as many as possible. And something I noticed with recently is people are throwing around the word fascism. Good start. I almost just tripped over the whole foundational word of this talk. But people talk about fascism and accuse people of being fascists. Now, let me preface this or preface this, as some would say. Some of my friends would say that. Let me preface this. Ryan, shout out to you. A general rule on this program, a general rule in my life, and something I tell people all the time, is that you lose an argument the minute you start to compare things to Nazi Germany. You lose an argument the minute you start to compare things to the Holocaust, because what it does is it demeans that moment in history. And I say this all the time, where no matter how bad whatever the hell you think is going on in America, don't you dare compare it to the Holocaust. Don't you dare compare it to Nazi Germany, because you cannot get worse, right? You cannot get worse than the worst time in human history. I actually had a commenter, I was explaining this to them, excuse me, and I was explaining that, hey, look, you get 0 points because you are comparing California to Auschwitz, and you have to go. And they responded with something like, so you're telling me that the Holocaust was worse than, I can't remember what they gave me now, but it was something to do with like in the last 10 years. And it was something that was not that big of a deal. And so I think people do get a little confused. But fascism is the new Nazi Germany, right? Well, it's the same thing, obviously. But people are now saying we live in a fascist state. We live in a oppressive fascist government with a tyrant dictator. Now, look, again, I have to preface this. I don't like Trump. Don't like Trump at all. Do not like him whatsoever. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a card-carrying MAGA member. I roll my eyes. I roll my eyes every time I see a Trump flag or a MAGA hat or whatever. So do not get this misconstrued. Do not get this twisted, ladies and gentlemen. I'm certainly not supporting anyone. I'm certainly not telling you Trump's a good guy. Okay? But the idea that we are in a fascist, authoritarian, totalitarianism, and the thought that we are there is downright laughable. So, what I'm going to do is, one time and one time only, I'm going to put this to bed. And I'm going to explain to you what fascism is and why we aren't in it. Bottom line. Now, you may say, okay, well, let's start with, are we in a fascist situation? The only part that anyone could misconstrue with any element of fascism is the idea that a fascist government usually relies on a charismatic, cult-like figure leader. Trump certainly does fit that mold of a charismatic cult of personality leader who people love. But Obama fit that as well. People loved Obama. He was very charismatic, cult-like. People really, really, really supported him. People had shirts and signs and whatever. That does not make either one a fascist. Okay, that is not enough. That is not enough to say, oh, this guy is charismatic. Oh, this guy has a legion of adoring fans. That must means he's a fascist. No, not the case. So where did fascism begin? Where can we even start? Now, first of all, guys, name another podcast that starts off with, we're talking about Stranger Things. We're talking about, and then we lead into me explaining fascism. No script, no editing. I really am on a whole other level. So where did fascism start? Fascism started with Mussolini. So Mussolini, he was the birther, I guess you can, of fascism. And it led into Nazi Germany, right? Hitler was an enormous fan of Mussolini. Hitler was, I don't want to generalize this, but Hitler molded his reign after Mussolini. Mussolini was in power, I believe, 11 years or so. Again, guys, I'm not really super up to date on my, dictator history here, but I think he was in there for like 11 years, somewhere in there, before Hitler did his thing. So now fascism is born out of strife. Usually what happens is people are, like something like the Great Depression happens, and people are vulnerable. A cult of personality-like leader then tells them, if we do this, and we love the country, and we fight for the country, we can get back to where we were. We're down now. We have to do these things to get back to our greatness. And usually what it makes people do is it eliminates their choice, so you wouldn't be a Republican or a Democrat. You would just be for the nation, for the country, for whatever this cult-like leader is advocating for. And he'll tell you, or he or she, I guess, will tell you, do these things, and we're going to get back to a perfect state. Now, then you roll into things like racism and ethnic cleansing. Mussolini and Hitler were both big on a quote-unquote perfect race, whether it's for a perfect German race or whatever. And you do see this like ethnic cleansing, or a lot of the times they will eliminate handicapped people or the elderly or people they don't deem worthy of their new state. Okay. So far, does this sound like America at all? No, it does not. A lot of the times, fascism, obviously incites violence. Actually, violence is one of the biggest proponents, or one of the biggest elements of fascism, where you will see tremendous violence. And violence is not only used, but advocated to force these beliefs. Something else you will see a lot is it will destroy truth, and it won't lie. This is another big part of fascism. They will not lie to you, but they will replace what is true. And I'll let you stew on that and think about that for a while. But they want to, instead of telling you something that's not true, they want to warp your brain and detach you from reality enough to where what they are telling you is the truth and is correct. That's another big distinction. So they eliminate choice. They have to. They eliminate parties. They eliminate differing ideals. They eliminate opposition. And they put everyone on a very linear path to their beliefs. So when you think about it, they eliminate your freedom and replace it with an unbridled enthusiasm for their beliefs. All right. Now, this kind of stuff, they also do not, obviously, democracy is not a part of this, right? Like voting, like protests. That's not a part of this. They don't want that. Liberty of expression, liberties of party is a sham. Fascism organizes people under state power, so state governance, stuff like that. Now, here's their belief is that you'd actually be freer. You'd be freer because you wouldn't have any consciousness towards anything. You would just worship them and worship the nation. That would just be it, right? So that's how they kind of advocated for it in their mind. So I don't have to really go much further, okay? I don't have to go much further to explain to you why this is not a thing, why America is not in a fascist place. Now, let me also caveat this by saying that fascism, the Axis powers, when they were destroyed, you could argue that, okay, that destroyed fascism. But fascism is an ideal, right? So there are certainly people who do believe in fascism right now, right? I mean, and I'm talking about in America. There's groups that do have these fascist ideals. There are radical groups everywhere. Fascism will never be eliminated. Just like racism will never be eliminated, even if it's not the majority. There are still people who get warped and get messed up and fall into these traps. History is a circle, ladies and gentlemen. History is a circle. It happens. It repeats itself, and it will forever. We'll always deal with this kind of shit. And the best we can do is prepare ourselves to deal with it and know what we're looking for, right? To know what we are looking for to stop the rise of the next Hitler or whatever it is. There's a big difference between not liking someone or being opposed to someone and them being an authoritarian dictator. I think that and again, I don't want to get into all this shit with like policy, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of the political spectrum. I don't care. All right. That ain't what this podcast is for. I've told y'all before, this is not a political podcast. I'm not an uber political person, more of a social commentator, and this is part of that. This whole fascist, racist, these kind of allegations, to me, all that does is it ruins the chances of us being able to defend against the next fascist or the next racist. If everyone is a fascist, no one's a fascist, right? If everyone is racist, no one is racist. If you're calling, everyone a homophobe, how the hell are you going to distinguish between who actually is a homophobe and who isn't, right? So it's an easy buzzword to throw around. Trump's a fascist, Trump's a racist, whatever. I would do it lightly, ladies and gentlemen. I would try and stop yourself from doing that. I would try and eliminate any of that moving forward. I don't want to say it's a sickness, but I do think it's close. I think it's really bad. I think it's really dangerous. again, all we advocate for here is education. All I advocate for here is critical thinking. That's all I'm interested in. I don't care if you vote right or left. I don't care if you write in whoever on your ballot, The Rock. But educate yourself first. Give me a reason why. That's all. That's all I want. So don't fall into this trap of he's a fascist, he's a racist, he's a homophobe, because if you do that, you're going to blind yourself to the actual fascists, the actual homophobes, and the actual racists. It is kind of bad. It's the same thing as the Holocaust thing. And I think it makes sense, or it should make sense, why comparing things to the Holocaust and to Nazi Germany, if it's not worthy of being compared, if that's not worthy, then it's a really bad deal. And it can really harm the future of our country and the future of our nation, because it will allow us to repeat history. The last thing we're going to talk about here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into a time machine. We're going to get into a time machine, get back into the way, way, way back machine, and Chelsea Handler is going to be relevant. And we're going to talk about her. So she is in the news for all the wrong reasons. She was on Jimmy Fallon, the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and live from her living room in her mansion, she explained why her former ex-boyfriend 50 Cent needs to repent for his support of Donald Trump. Now, we're going to listen to this. I'm going to play you the clip, and then we're going to talk about it, and we'll laugh, and some may cry.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right, 50 Cent, and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets, and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
So that was the one and only Chelsea Handler talking to Jimmy Fallon. And this video is just getting obliterated, the dislike to like ratio, and for good reason. I've advocated for this kind of stuff before. I do feel kind of uncomfortable doing this because as a middle-class white person, it's weird that it's weird for people to hear me kind of like not advocate for, but defend, be the one to stand up for this, because it sounds funny coming out of my mouth, but I can't let this kind of stuff just go by the wayside. So this is so demeaning and disrespectful and arrogant and selfish towards African Americans, to tell them you have to do something because you're African American. As Chelsea Handler, a very rich white person sitting in her mansion, I think that is disgusting. And it's even more disgusting that she also has the gall to cite that she's woke, right? Or cite that she is progressive, or cite that she is, for freedom and equality and this and whatever. And she's part of the progressive woke culture, when this is the opposite of that. This is the complete opposite of woke culture, or the complete opposite of being woke or being progressive or being equal or whatever. 50 Cent tells Jimmy Fallon or whoever, hey man, I've read Trump's tax policies. I like those more than Biden's. I don't like Biden's tax policies. I don't want to pay more taxes. 50 Cent has done some research. I'm not saying that that's enough. I'm not saying that, that's whatever. I'm not saying 50 Cent's right. I could care less. But for Chelsea Handler to, instead of doing any kind of research or any kind of actual, back and forth or a discussion or having, a lively discourse, instead she falls back on the, let me remind you, 50 Cent, that you are black. Thus, you have to think this way. Thus, you have to vote this way, or you aren't black, or you aren't doing what black people should do. I don't have to explain why this is so bad. I don't have to explain why this is the worst. If someone told me, hey man, you're from Mississippi, you gotta love shooting guns. It's like, I do not. I'm not a hunter. I've shot a gun, but I'm not a gun guy. No, you're from Mississippi. You have to like shooting guns. You have to like hunting, right? No, I'm just me. I'm my own person. Like do not want to be pigeonholed. I do not want to be put in a shoebox here. You probably have a lot of camo, right? You're from Mississippi. Nope, don't have any camo at all. I am, again, my own person with my own thoughts. I have my own thing going on here. I'm good. Like I can just make my mind up. I'm a big boy. I can read. So those like Mississippi stereotypes. This is a stereotype. Chelsea Handler is stereotyping 50 Cent. This is the same thing as saying if she was like, we were at a restaurant and 50 Cent said, or he declined to order the fried chicken. I had to remind him, it's like, if she would say that, it's like, Jesus Christ, Chelsea, that's the most racist thing I've ever heard. Like, you just said that on Jimmy Fallon? You just said you had to remind 50 Cent that he's black so that he had to order a certain type of food? That is incredibly racist, incredibly insensitive, and incredibly stereotypical. This is the exact same thing. It is the same thing. I was going to say it's worse, but it's just the same. She's forcing him into a stereotype. She's forcing him into an ideal system. She's forcing him into thinking a certain way. She's expecting him to do no thinking of his own. I mean, this is a bad look. And it's funny because it comes from the people who spout off at the opposite. And Chelsea Handler has actually been in trouble for this before. She tried to do a woke kind of video series, and she did it from like her backyard in her mansion. And it's really, this reminds me of like when Gal Gadot did the Imagine thing where all the celebrities are singing Imagine from their multi-million-dollar estates when the country was in flux of the coronavirus. And it didn't go well. People didn't want to hear that shit. People didn't want to hear, some blue-collar guy from West Virginia who got laid off from his job didn't want to hear Gal Gadot singing Imagine from her Malibu guest room. And this is how you know that a lot of these people just have no idea what they're talking about. Chelsea Handler obviously has absolutely no clue what she's talking about. She's just flat out letting her emotions get the best of her and flat out saying, I'm not worried about policy. I'm not worried about your thoughts. I'm not worried about whatever you have going on here. I'm not worried about any details. Flat out, black people have to vote against Donald Trump. Like, that's crazy, And again, this isn't like a long-winded take. This isn't a, hey guys, here's my TED Talk on why this is racist, why this is insensitive, why this is demeaning. And because it's pretty obvious. And I know the listeners to this show I would consider very well educated or very smart, a lot of common sense. I think a lot of the people who listen to this program believe in critical thinking and believe in true equality. And we believe in, everyone can believe in whatever they want. And we're the minority, we're the last people thinking that. We're the last people thinking, hey, you just do you, I'm gonna do me, right? And that's it. You know what I mean? So she's the opposite. She is the us against them mentality. And I think that is the plague. I think that is the worst thing about our society right now is this us versus them, red versus blue or whatever, where people are so scared to be different. And people are so scared to be, to have different views. I mean, how crazy is it? Like, think about her and 50 Cent. So her and 50 Cent, I'm not sure about what their relationship was like. Well, let's say it was a great relationship. And I'm not sure how long they dated. But she said he was her favorite ex-boyfriend. All of that was thrown away because he supported Trump for his tax plan. And Chelsea says, now you're not my favorite ex-boyfriend. Like, now this and this. You have to... And then she does one of my favorite things. This is like the flag kneeling stuff where then she says, you have to publicly denounce him in order for me to be back on your side. And it's like, just like with the Drew Brees flag thing where they said, it's not okay. It's not good enough if you apologize. You have to publicly kneel for us to accept your apology. Doesn't that sound a little much? Doesn't that sound a little Old Testament? It's like, that's pretty close to the whole, like, you got caught stealing, apologizing is not enough, cut off your hand in order to really repent. It's like, well, hold on a second. You know what I mean? So this is more of the same. And the fact that it's coming from Chelsea Handler, of all people, is even more laughable. And the fact that it's on The Tonight Show, like, just the whole setup is insane. Jimmy Fallon's in his multi-million dollar penthouse, probably in New York. Chelsea's probably in California or something. And they're just yucking it up, just laughing because 50 Cent is black, so he should vote for Biden. You know, it's like, how much more ridiculous can you get? And people wonder why this like false sense of celebrity is falling apart, because this is just so detached from reality. This is just so detached from humanity. And this is something I saw being thrown around, but I thought was pretty bad. And it's made so much worse from Jimmy Fallon just laughing. Let me read some of these comments for y'all. So there's some of these comments on the video. So a white person telling a black person what they can and can't do. Got it. These are the people calling Trump a racist. So 50 Cent can't vote for Trump because he's black. That's really racist. Two white people laughing about reining a black man in politically. Nice. If you the blatant racism from the left is mind-blowing. The fact that their fans will acknowledge it is just puzzling. Well, not acknowledge it is puzzling. Malcolm X was absolutely right about white liberal Democrats. Handler telling a black man to get back on the Democratic plantation. More racism from the left. So let me get this straight. A white woman had to remind a grown black man that he is black as if he somehow woke up and forgot, and she had to put him back in his place. I think there's a term for people like that, but I just can't put my finger on it. So Handler is saying that black people aren't allowed to think for themselves but have to vote Democrat. Tell me again how conservatives are racist. Unbelievable. I mean, it really is bad. It really is bad. And this kind of stuff is rampant. It really is. I mean, I talked about the wedding. I talked about the reception and stuff, and meeting people you don't know and all that. And it is one of those things where, and this didn't happen, but it is one of those things where if someone would have brought up politics, which we've all been taught not to do, if someone would have brought up politics, you do get nervous. You do get nervous about what the hell you're supposed to say. If you meet somebody and they're like, "Oh, hey, who are you voting for?" It's like, shit, man. Like, either way, if we're not on the same page, you run a risk of that person basically telling you, okay, well, get lost, because some people think like that. Some people think like, if it is not 1 + 1, like if it's not a perfect match, you can't have opposing viewpoints. And then, like I said, that didn't happen. But I think we live in a world where that can happen. Where I've heard people who get fired at their job for both, for supporting Biden or for supporting Trump. And I don't think we need to be living in a world like that. And every time I hear about something like that happening, it upsets me. It makes me. That's my nightmare. My nightmare is where there is no differing opinions, where there is no differing voices. I just recently got in a discussion with some family members, because we were talking about Mother Teresa, and I brought up a essay that Christopher Hitchens, as you all know, one of my heroes, Christopher Hitchens did opposing Mother Teresa and kind of pointing out some flaws in how she was portrayed. So I sent them the video, and we had this long-form discussion where, obviously they were taken aback by it, which Christopher Hitchens did. Like, that was Christopher Hitchens' main MO, was to incite this, feeling. And I was explaining, like, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just offering the different opinion. I love that shit. I love the differing opinion. I love it. I mean, I've said before on the show, I'm a Catholic, right? I love listening to atheists or listening to different religions or whatever. I love that. If it was up to me, I would get, I think it's a polymist is what it's, let me make sure I'm not getting this wrong. I think a polymist is someone who enjoys, a polymist, a person who engages in controversial debate. That's what I like. That I like getting in debates or arguments, not arguments. I mean, I don't walk around like, I don't want to sound like I'm walking around getting people's opinions on late stage capitalism. Like, I don't care about that. I mean, it's not like that. But I enjoy a long form discussion with different ideals, and it can be on anything. It can be on sports, can be on cooking, can be on, whatever, history or politics or TV or, I'm interested in what your what do you think about Stranger Things? Okay, well, you love it. I don't like it. Let's talk about it. Or I like it. You don't like it. Let's talk about it. That I think that's like the best. And I hope that we get to a place in society again where open discussion, differing opinions, stuff like that can be the norm again. It's certainly the norm on this channel. It's certainly the norm here. I mean, not to, talk about the comments again, but out of 30,000 views, it ain't a lot of people agreeing with me. I'll tell you that. You go look at my comments on YouTube. If you go look at the comment section on my YouTube, it's a lot of people not agreeing with me. And I'm really proud of that, because if you go to Ben Shapiro, if you go to Steven Crowder, if you go to whoever, all their videos are 99% like. I could get 99% likes on my videos if I wanted to. I could pander if I wanted to. I could placate to a certain audience. But I'm not interested in that. And if that's it, if we hit a wall, or if we hit a growth plateau because the algorithm doesn't like that we have 60, 70% like ratio and that whatever, so be it. So be it. I would rather go down on this ship of promoting different thoughts, different thinking, and advocating for this kind of discussion. I would rather this than being a yes man for whatever ideology it is. I'm not interested in that, and I never will be. And, this is like probably close to the 40th podcast we've done this year. We're well past the pace of one podcast per week. So the fact that we still have a very good listenership, a very good base, people listening, people talking, people discussing, people asking questions, that means that there are people out there who want that same thing. And thank you again for being part of that. I do appreciate that. Thank you all again for listening. That is going to be the show. We had a fun one, man. I had a blast doing this one. This was a good one. This is a good mix. It was kind of the lighthearted discussion, talk, whatever, and then boom, a couple of topical things. So I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate all of you hanging on, man, while I took a week off or whatever to go do some RL things. Don't forget, guys, you have an RL too. You have a real life too. So live it. Do whatever the hell makes you happy, man. I'm telling you, it's really tough right now. Do not let yourself get bogged down in politics or work or money or voting or whatever. Don't get bogged down. Do something. Do whatever. Take a trip. Drink some beer. Eat some food. Walk the beach. Do whatever. Watch Stranger Things. I'm telling you right now, life is not that serious. It is not that big of a deal. People are getting too wrapped up into this, and they're forgetting to breathe. They're forgetting to live. We do not forget to live here on this channel. Thank you again, guys, for listening. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. On the YouTube, we have tons of content over there, so go over there if you're not watching. If you are watching on YouTube, go over to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. 5-star rating, please. We are still 100% 5-star rated. We have never got a rating of less than 5 stars on iTunes, which is pretty amazing, because there's a ton of trolls out there. But this content, this program has never, ever, ever, ever seen less than 5 stars. So if you haven't rated the show, go on over to iTunes, rate the show. It helps with discoverability, all that shit. So thank you very much, guys. I love it. I love doing this. Appreciate y'all listening. I will see you again next time here on the James Skrmetta Show.